What is your duty?
To serve the Emperor's will,
What is the Emperor's will?
that we fight and die.
What is death?
It is our duty
What is your duty?
to serve the Emperor's will,
What is the Emperor's will?
that we fight and die.
What? Please. Done.
Warhammer 40k, a series that we have been exploring all summer. This franchise has leaked itself into all types of media, and today we are looking into one of the most popular Warhammer 40k games of all time. A game that has captured the heart and soul of what it means to be one of the Emperor's greatest warriors, granting the Emperor's mercy to all who oppose them, Xeno or man. These people are considered to be the best of the best and look down on all who aren't them. The Space Marine, Games Workshop's golden faction. These enhanced humans are the Emperor's chosen, taking over 100 guardsmen to match the ferocity of one Space Marine. Today we are going to be following the story of Captain Demetrian Titus and his adventure during the Grinskull War of Graia against the Orcs and the Forces of Chaos. So grab your favorite figure, load up your plasma pistol, and get ready for this episode of the Summer of Warhammer 40k with Space Marine 1. War! A massive orc invasion has plagued itself into the forge world of Graia, an entire planet filled with manufacturing weapons for the Imperium of Man. During some testing of a new weapon by an Inquisitor, the orc warlord Grinskull launched an attack in search of weapons they call Dakna. But instead of invading and destroying the weapons, like most orc invasions, Grinskull decided to actually capture the Earth's defenses. Graia called for help from the Imperium. Guardsmen from the planet Cadia responded first, but because the orcs took the defense weapons instead of destroying them, only one Guardian squad was able to make it down and survive for weeks with no reinforcements. This is where you come in. The Ultramarines arrive with the courage of Master Chief and the leader of the Saints. You took a jump pack and descended with no fear as your ship was shot out of orbit. Titus landed directly on Grinskull's ship and proceeded to take it out of the sky, then finally making it to the planet's surface, meeting up with the Cadian guardsmen who desperately needed reinforcements. Or did they? Apparently they held off the orc attacks for 2 weeks on their own. Titus and his two fellow Space Marines move on to take out the orbital defense systems so the Imperium can actually assist in the fight. Upon trying to stop the orcs from taking any Titans that survived the battle, Titus met up with the Inquisitor from the beginning, Grogan. Learning about his new powerful weapon which runs off batteries that tap into the warp for power, it is crucial that the orcs do not get their hands on this power. Titus and the Ultramarines move to the factory to retrieve the power source. The orcs, not knowing what the power source is, wants it anyway because it's sparkly. Drogon and Ultramarine Leandros both agreed that Titus should not be able to hang onto the warp cell so long since it puts out so much warp energy, leading Leandros to believe that Titus is corrupted. The Inquisitor finally reveals the Ultramarines that the weapon that is charged by that battery has the power to target any Xeno and destroy them. Wanting to use this to stop the overflowing orc population, Titus heads out to get to the weapon. Once powered up, the weapon did not work and seemed to only daze the orcs. Suddenly, portal. The Chaos Marines are now here and start massacring all who are nearby. Numereth reveals that he had mind-controlled the Inquisitor to make the weapon to create Chaos portals. Now with the orcs weakened, the Ultramarines focus on the Chaos Marines, getting a Titan supercharged by the warp to end the portal. Now all that was left was Nemeroth. Nemeroth has been trying to take control of Titus and convert him to his side, but he noticed that Titus was resisting more than all other Space Marines, making him special. This made Leandros even more curious about Titus and was wondering if he was falling to corruption. As Nemeroth was about to become unstoppable, Titus arrives and battles with him. They shoot, they fight, they fall off a cliff and fight in the air for almost 10 minutes, until Titus has had enough of Nemeroth and decides to tear this man's head off from his fucking body. with Titus conveniently landing in the Thunderhawk with the Guardsmen. Sadly, Titus's victory is short-lived as the Inquisition arrives to investigate Titus due to Leandro's fucking snitching on shit he doesn't know.
Captain Titus has been corrupted by Chaos, Inquisitor Thrax.
I am no heretic.
You lie! Only an agent of Chaos could withstand such warp exposure.
I sent the demon to oblivion.
But did you have unholy assistance?
Convinced that Titus is a heretic. While Titus defends his name, he reluctantly agrees to be investigated, aka tortured, to spare the Guardsmen from any repercussions. This is where the game ends, and this has been the ending for 13 years.
Codex Astartes leaves no room for doubt. You cannot touch the warp and emerge unscathed.
The Codex Astartes is a set of rules. They guide us, shape us as Ultramarines, teach us to hold duty and honor sacred above all. But how we live with those rules is the true test of a Space Marine. And you have failed.
While we do get answers in other media, including the game Bolt Gun, an official sequel has never happened. Until now, September 9th, everybody, I am so fucking pumped! But how does this 13-year-old game hold up? With all the trailers and gameplay being shown, there must be people who want to look into this game before Space Marine 2 comes out, right? Well, you'll be happy to know that playing this game 13 years later is as simple as the day it came out. Just start the fucking game. Gameplay in this game was crucial to being good, as this is the closest thing we have gotten to feeling the true power of a Space Marine. The biggest complaint I have heard is that the standard bolt weapons feel weaker than they should in the lore. But gameplay perspective wise, it makes sense that you wouldn't want the starting weapons to start one-shotting. Otherwise, why use anything else? This game will take you on to multiple different locations throughout the war. Encountering saving guardsmen as a side objective, which is going to be my main goal in Space Marine 2, gotta make a salamander. The melee for the time being is awesome, as well as if you played any action-adventure game in 2011. It was the very definition of a hack and slash with your enemies maybe reacting to your attacks, but you're still doing massive amounts of damage. But once you hit that stun button, you see that button above their head? Well, this is where the fun begins. Sadly, these are not in the multiplayer. Speaking of multiplayer, this game has it. Hop into a lobby with friends. It's old as shit, what do you expect? And become Space Marines or Chaos Marines depending on your side. There are simple modes like Team Deathmatch, but then there's the Horde mode. You and 4 Space Marines charge into battle and take out waves of enemies. And this ain't no simple push through. This can get real difficult, especially on the Chaos Marine side, where you are fighting guardsmen and psychers, which their main way of attacking is range, whereas the orcs are mostly melee with some range tinkered around. If I rated the Horde mode on my tier list video, then this would have been an extremely high A tier. Not getting S for the sole reason that there are no executions, which is how you restored health in the single player, making it harder to survive in that mode. Along with the multiplayer, you do get to do the coolest thing ever if you are a Warhammer 40k fan. You get to customize your loadout and armor. You can even choose which chapter of Space Marines you can be and customize that chapter armor. Fucking what? They could have easily just made it the campaign Ultramarines and the enemy Chaos faction and called it a day. Speaking of those chapters, let's explain just a few of these that Gaius and I love to see, and hopefully we see these chapters come back in Space Marine 2. Hawk Lords. The venerable Hawk Lords are masters of the skies, renowned for their expertise in all forms of aerial combat, proudly bearing the purple and gold of their chapter, of which the era of founding is unknown. They descend onto the battlefield not from the clumsy drop pod, but from the noble Thunderhawk. The Salamanders. The noble Salamanders are the artisans from Nocturne, the Fireborn of Vulcan. Their fury in battle and the raging inferno of their armaments is only eclipsed by their uncompromising love for mankind. Unlike most chapters, which seek to persecute the enemy at all costs, the Salamanders never lose sight of their purpose and will shed the blood of their whole chapter if even one hive city remains intact. Imperial Fist. The indomitable Praetorians of Terra. The Imperial Fist are without question masters of fortification. they can turn any position they fight from into a war of attrition for their foe, and their sheer endurance makes almost all who would assault them unable to pass the test of wills that a siege demands. And then finally, the ones that we are focusing on in this game, the Ultramarines. The Ultramarines. The regal Ultramarines are the Lords of Ultramar, who have held their beacon of hope and safety for the Imperium for 10,000 years. With the return of their Primarch Robu Guilliman, they will surely hold it for 10,000 more, even as the enemies of the Imperium push against its walls. And of course, so many more that we couldn't get to them all in this video. With all this being said, if you were thinking about picking up Space Marine 1 to get ready for Space Marine 2, I would 1,000% recommend it. It's not only do you get to experience a game that still holds up to this day, you get to learn a little about the 40k universe, and you get to see the first story of Captain Titus before we saw him again 13 years later on the Tyranid invasion of Kadaku. But remember how I said that this game ended in a cliffhanger that's almost a decade old? How is Titus settling on Kadaku? Wasn't he being investigated by the Inquisitors? We had some things come out since Space Marine 1 that tells us what's going on, and we shall go over that and more when Space Marine 2 drops. So go out and get this game and show your allegiance to the Emperor and get ready for the Tyranid invasion. September 9th, everybody!